Have you ever wondered what it would be like to just freeze time and see what's happening all over the world on one single day? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. The day is April 8th, 2026. So what's going on?
Okay, so the biggest story, the one grabbing all the headlines, sounds like really good news. After 40 long days of fighting, a major ceasefire has just been announced in the Middle East. You'd think the whole world would be breathing a huge sigh of relief.
But that's not what's happening. Instead of relief, there's this tension in the air, you know? It's almost like everyone is on edge. So what gives? If there's a ceasefire, why does it feel like the world is just holding its breath?
And that brings us right into our first big topic. Because the ceasefire, well, it's not as simple as it sounds. It's actually incredibly fragile. So let's break down the details, right? This is a 2-week temporary truce between the US and Iran. Pakistan actually stepped in to mediate the whole thing. And here's the really critical part. They've agreed to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. You have to remember, that strait is like a superhighway for global trade, and it's been pretty much shut down. And if you want to get a sense of just how high the stakes are, just look at what the UN Secretary General had to say. He called it essential to avoid a regional conflagration. Now that's just a fancy way of saying a massive war that could pull in the entire region. So yeah, this is a big deal.
Okay, and this is where you really start to see how fragile this whole thing is. On one hand, you've got this pause between the US and Iran. But on the very same day, the conflict is still raging elsewhere. Israeli airstrikes are hitting Beirut, and Israel has made it crystal clear. This truce has nothing to do with their operations against Hezbollah. For them, it's business as usual.
Then there's this number, 50%. What's that all about? Well, President Donald Trump has thrown another wrench in the works. He's put out a warning that any nation caught sending weapons to Iran is going to get hit with a massive 50% tariff on everything they sell to America. It's basically a layer of economic threat sitting right on top of this shaky truce.
But this tightrope walk between peace and conflict, it's not just happening in the Middle East. Let's pivot over to Asia, because we're seeing a very similar kind of push and pull over there.
So on the one hand, you've got some good news. The head of Taiwan's main opposition party, the KMT, is actually in Beijing. They're having talks, and the whole point is to try and cool things down in the Taiwan Strait, which is a really big deal, especially with a big US-China summit on the horizon. But just like we saw before, on that exact same day, something totally different is happening. North Korea goes and launches a bunch of ballistic missiles. And this isn't a one-off. It's their 6th test just this year. As you can imagine, South Korea and Japan were not happy about it at all. All right, so all this political drama we've been talking about, it doesn't just stay in one place. It sends out these huge economic ripples that affect countries all over the world. Here's a perfect example, Bangladesh. They were so close to a huge achievement graduating from the UN's list of least developed countries. I mean, that's a game changer for them. It opens up better trade deals, everything. But now, because of all the economic chaos from these global conflicts, they've had to ask for a delay. It's a major setback. It's not all doom and gloom on the economic front, though. There is one piece of good news. Myanmar is reporting they've exported a record 2.74 million tons of rice this year. So, amidst all the uncertainty, at least one key part of their economy is showing some real strength.
Okay, let's shift gears a little. We've talked about geopolitics and economics, but now let's look at what's happening inside countries. We're talking about some major social and legal changes that are really shaping people's day-to-day lives.
All right, first we need to get some context for this next story. We're going to be talking about speech-based conversion therapy. And it's important to know what that means. It's the practice of using counseling or talk therapy to try and change a person's sexual orientation or gender identity. No physical stuff involved. Understanding that definition is key to what comes next. So on this day, April 8th, the U.S. Supreme Court makes a huge ruling. It's an 8-1 decision in a case called Childs versus Salazar. And what they decided was to strike down laws that banned this specific kind of speech-based therapy. Their reasoning? It all came down to the First Amendment. The court basically said that the government can't just ban speech, even if a lot of people find that speech really controversial. At the same time, there's another story unfolding, captured by this single number, around 1,000. That's how many migrants are estimated to have died trying to cross the Mediterranean just this year. And the International Organization for Migration says that in the last 2 weeks alone, more than 180 people are feared lost at sea. It's just a devastating toll. And this really ties everything together, doesn't it? This crisis is a direct result of all that instability and conflict we've been talking about. It really makes you stop and think, what is the real human cost of living in a world that's constantly on the brink? But for our last section, let's pull the camera back. Because even with all this turmoil, on this very same day, there are also incredible things happening. Things that point towards the future, towards scientific progress, and even global unity.
Way up above all this earthly chaos, NASA's Orion spacecraft is heading home. The Artemis II crew just wrapped up a successful 10-day mission where they flew right by the moon, and today they started their journey back to Earth. It's just an amazing moment of scientific achievement. And back down here on Earth, there's another countdown happening. We are just 2 months away from the 2026 FIFA World Cup. All the host cities in the US, Canada, and Mexico are kicking off fan events, getting ready for this massive tournament that's all about bringing the whole world together for a change.
So there you have it. That's our snapshot of the world on April 8th, 2026. You've got this fragile truce, all this underlying tension, but also these amazing leaps in technology and moments of unity. It really leaves you with one big question, doesn't it? Is the world finding some new kind of complicated balance? Or is it just holding its breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop?